Welcome to another St. John Norrona midweek message. I've got an instrument here and a couple of amplifiers, actually a couple of instruments. And I got a question for you. Are you an instrument or an amplifier? Instruments have a role to play in making music. Amplifiers also have their role in making music. There can be a temptation to see all of the glory and all of the innovation and all of the uniqueness as coming from the instrument. But that's not quite the way it works. Amplifiers have their role too. The amplifier takes what's produced by the instrument, it's connected with a cord, and the amplifier takes that sound, colors it, builds it, and sends it out with power and with projection so that it can reach a lot of people. Before amplifiers came along, all instruments were acoustic instruments. Some instruments are very quiet, could only be heard in a small room by a few people. A classic is the clavichord, a keyboard instrument you've probably not heard and might most likely have never even heard of. It was a small keyboard instrument, and if you had more than 4, 5, 6 people in a room, it was very hard to hear. It was a chamber music instrument for very small chambers or small groups of people. Along came something called a harpsichord, and it was much louder and able to penetrate out into bigger rooms, and it became a more important instrument for most composers. But each instrument has its unique voice. Nowadays, there's a version of the clavichord that is amplified. And that tiny little 4 or 5 voice, 4 or 5 sets of ears can now be expanded. And an electrified clavichord can play to a stadium full of 60,000 people because of the amplifier. Electric amplification. Now this is an electric guitar. And if I turn it all the way down and play it, I can talk over top of it so that you can't even hear what's being played. It's a very small, weak sound all by itself. This is a Fender Telecaster, by the way, a solid body guitar without a resonating body. This guitar has a great sound through a great amplifier. But without an amplifier, it's about as loud as a clavichord. And you get in a room with 6 or 7 people, if they're talking, you're not going to hear the instrument at all. Now, the amplifier is important. This amplifier that I'm playing through, this is a great classic, a Canadian-made amplifier from Winnipeg. It's a Garnet. And they, for a long time, didn't get the respect they deserve, and they still don't really. But it's a great sounding tube amplifier. And it provides its voice to the instrument. Now, that it has something called a variable pitch tremolo, and kind of a special sound that is not very common in amplifiers. It's starting to make a bit of a comeback. But this old Garnet amplifier, it's just a great sounding amp. Now this guitar is an acoustic guitar. If I play that and talk over top of it, you can still hear the guitar. I play that with a pick, I can probably drown out my speaking voice quite easily. But still, if I'm trying to play in front of a couple of 100 people, this guitar is also going to get lost without amplification. That's why we have amplifiers for acoustic guitars. Now this amp up here is very different from the old classic Garnet. The old bass amplifier makes a great guitar amp, and it colors the voice of the instrument. This amplifier is designed to, as naturally as possible, reproduce the sound of an acoustic guitar. So if I play this and then turn it up, it doesn't change substantially the sound of the instrument. All amplifiers color what they amplify, some. But in a public address amplifier, you want ideally to color the sound as little as possible. It's what we call a transparent sound, that the amplifier kind of disappears. It sounds like that voice or that guitar or that trumpet is right in front of you, even though you're a long ways away in a big audience. Well, what's this got to do with people? Well, some people are very transparent in the way that they express other people's views. And they're able to communicate the original vision of someone with a great deal of power and projection. And they can reach a lot of people. And other people, when they do that, they contribute a lot of their own personality. And they color the message. And the message ends up being transformed, made into something new, changed. Hopefully not distorted in such a way that it can't be understood and that doesn't make any sense anymore. That's being a bad PA. That's distorting the sound so that it's not pleasant, or it can't be heard clearly, or the original message is transformed so much that it doesn't make any sense anymore. When we're being a PA system, when we're trying to transmit a brilliant idea that we appreciate and have come to understand and want other people to know and to receive, we want to be a really clear, transparent PA. We want to transmit the original as much as possible. And sometimes the ideas benefit from more color, like you would have with the old Garnet. Maybe taking some of the sharp edge off of something that was harsh or judgmental. And it can be amplified in a way that colors it in a more productive way. Life is complicated. Music is complicated. And we all play the role of amplifier at times, and we all play the role of instrument sometimes. God can use anyone as an instrument to produce and bring something new into the world. Whether that's an idea or a product or a thought or a person. That's being an instrument of God's creativity. Hopefully, we all in the course of our lives have opportunities to be instruments and to be amplifiers. Hopefully, when we amplify, we do it in a way that is true to the original and it is at least somewhat transparent. Hopefully, when we find ideas that come from sources that are updatable, ideas that perhaps have something in them that needs to be changed, we can contribute to some color and some new understanding and bring that forward in a way that is even more useful and powerful. So, hope that this has been useful and not just too academic. But know that God is able to use you as an instrument to bring something new into the world. And God will do that when needed. And God is able to also give you the power and the clarity to be a good amplifier and to add your particular color and character to something beautiful and bring it forth into the world. We're all amplifiers. We're all instruments. It's not simple, but it's beautiful. Play on.